back, Fire Crew. It's your captain, Yeehaw Yadam, and we're back with the official Monday Market Watch. So the last Market Watch was kind of a little impromptu one, letting you guys know what I believe the prices would be when the set dropped. And now we're finally getting to see if I was right, if I was wrong. And let's see where Pillars of Strength really is right here. This is Sunday, obviously before the Monday being recorded. So the set's been out since Friday, Thursday if you got it a little bit earlier. And let me tell you, this set is actually finally looking a little bit more reasonable for the player base for the One Piece trading card game. So starting off, the boxes. The boxes are now currently 133. I believe they were 150 when we made the video on Thursday. So we've seen the prices of the box drop significantly, percentage-wise. And that percentage-wise should also translate to the cards that you see in the set. So I just want to let you guys know, boxes currently at 133. We can see this even going lower. I finally have seen people in my area selling the boxes at like 120, 110 even, which is really, really healthy as opposed to the 150 that I saw when the pre-release was happening. And so let's get right to the manga rare of the set. The manga rare is Sogeking, and Sogeking is the first manga rare that I see that's under $500. I believe Shanks at one point when the game had just come out got close. I think he was like 520, 510, but he never dropped below 500. Sogeking, for whatever reasons, there might be a majority or like a bunch of different factors that really play into it. But the factor that I want to think that it is that the scalping that used to happen in this game is starting to kind of relax. They're starting to fix distribution issues because I am seeing a lot more product in general. Even with allocation issues from distributors, you're still seeing an abundant amount of product and people are able to finally get the cards that they want. So Sogeking for $470. Yeah, that's a lot of money. But when you think about it in terms of manga rare, that's pretty darn good. I don't believe Ace dropped below 600. Shanks didn't drop below 5. But Sogeking finally dropped below that threshold, which is really, really nice to see where that goes. And it's not just one listing, right? It's not just one guy selling it. It's a bunch of different guys. The only thing that's a little fishy is that, we do have a couple first-time sellers here. And that's understandable. Maybe you've never sold cards on TCG Player. This is the first big card that you're like, what, no one near me wants to buy this for $400. Let me see if I can put it up on TCG Player. So even though these guys do have 0%, right here in 100% with 159 sales is at 470, which is a little bit more trustable. You even have a 25k sales individual, that's selling it for 274, which is not bad for this card. And I'm going to talk about a couple of specific cards. Let's talk about all of the leaders. So Charlotte Katakuri, $155. Now, I did get to play this leader recently, and let me tell you, he's a bunch of fun. Besides being good, whether he's good or bad or tier 1 or tier 2, regardless of the situation, yellow has seemed like a ton of fun for me. It seems like a deck or an archetype that I can mess around with. The triggers feel really fun as the player triggering them. As the opponent, they feel horrible. But this character allowed me to look at my life, looking at my opponents, is really, really cool. And it's something that I've never really experienced in this game or in many other card games. And that information is really interesting. And I do see him being just used more in the future. Seeing him at 155, I think he was 170s when the pre-release was going on. And I said I can see this guy holding value just because A, he's expected to do really well this set, and B, he's honestly just a really fun and cool leader. So 155 for this is not a terrible price. We weren't too far off. I believe I said he was going to be anywhere between 130 to 150. So we're pretty on the money with him. Going up, the next leader is Ace. Now he's at $100. Now I did finally get an Ace, and I was picking him up at $100 because I think that was a pretty reasonable price for this card. And it does seem like he is settling around that zone. And I could continue to see him drop just a little bit, but there's a lot of resistance here at the $100 range. It might seem like this is where he's going to lay for quite some time, unless something were to happen, competitive tournaments, no results and things like that. So $100 for this card is excellent. And also, if you guys are looking for some Ace content, we have some Ace content coming up later on this week. So definitely keep checking on the channel for that. Nami being $88. I was thinking this card can go even lower. I even said maybe in the 60s. And a jump from 180, I believe, to $80 and $100 difference is just about right. This card is not $88 in my opinion, and will continue to go down. Even with there's not much resistance keeping her at 88. There's 2 here and 1 here. But this card doesn't really sell at these prices, I believe. I lied. Damn, there's a lot of people picking up Nami. Well then. We'll see. We'll see where this card can go. I do think this has more room to drop down, but seeing the card drop $100 whole in less than a week feels pretty good for anyone that was excited to play this deck. Not only that, but the rest of the deck is very low rarity unless you want to play Zeph and Usopp. And if you play Zeph and Usopp, those cards are legitimately under $20 a piece for the alt arts. I think Usopp is less than 10. So pretty exciting to be a East Blue Nami player. Now, Rob Lucci is a deck that I think is very, very powerful. This deck, no joke, has me scared. This is a real leader for the black archetype. And black in general is in a really good spot. So seeing him at $70 seems reasonable, but also maybe undervalued in my opinion. The art on this card is really cool. And yeah, I can see him going up from $70, although there's a lot of copies here at 70. So it'll be quite some time before he even jumps through that little threshold, right? And gets to the $100 range. But this is a very good leader, very strong. I recommend you guys don't sleep on him. If you want to play him, I think 70 is a good price for this leader personally. Especially right before the competitive season kicks back up now towards July and August, so we can see what results this guy may have in the Treasure Cups and tournaments to come. Charlotte Linlin, $40. We were on the money on this one. This card, this leader is not terrible, but they're also not great. Being a 4-lifer is just rough. This is like Queen from the next set, but at home. There is a lot that yellow does get within the next couple of sets that may propel this leader forward. But the black archetype doesn't really synergize much with yellow. The best synergy you may have is Katakuri and Isho dropping people down, or if you play Kuzan, and then Katakuri being able to go ahead and life any card in the game as opposed to just 8 drops. But what makes this leader really cool is the healing that you can consistently do from 1 life. But if your opponent plays smart and just doesn't get you to 1 life, leaves you at 2 life, and then just slams you in 1 turn, it's going to be a little bit difficult. The main cards you have to play around in this deck are the Fujitora, the leader ability to keep her out of that range, and obviously just the very powerful trigger effects / black blockers that exist in general. But once you go ahead and just amass some board presence, there's not really much this deck can do in terms of removal, because black as well as yellow just don't really have it. And if they do use a heavier black removal engine, then they're foregoing the yellow engine, and they're also foregoing cards in hand. So there's a little bit of a misconception here, but I do think this leader is really cool. And obviously any dual life leader just gets better as the game progresses, as better yellow cards and black cards continue to be printed set after set. Eventually there will become a point where this leader may or may not become viable. So even if it's not viable now, never sleep on a leader that could become viable in the future. $40 seems really solid. I might be able to pick one up at this range. This seems pretty reasonable for a leader of this type. We've got Iceberg at $38, which is pretty darn reasonable. I mean, I've played against it. It's a lot of fun. It's not a deck that I would take to a competitive tournament, but he's super duper cool. Seeing this card at $38 is mighty fine for you Iceberg enjoyers, Water 7 players. So if you guys do want to play this deck, I know a lot of people were excited to like try it out as a meme deck or something for locals. So for those people that want to do that, at least you can make the deck really shiny for not too much if you so choose to. So $38 on the leader. I believe Poly is the cheapest alternate art in the set, sitting at like $6. So nice. We're eating good as Iceberg players. Then we've got Arlong dropping from like $80 to $40, a 50% decrease. Just in general, this was $120. It's a big decrease. This was around $50, so not, again, there's not much lower that it can go after it was already at $50. Rob Lucci was like $110. So just small drops in those characters, but like obviously if they were already low to begin with, they're not going to have big drops like that Nami, right? Arlong, I believe this was in the 80s, so he had a 50% decrease, and that's pretty reasonable as well. I've had a lot of people try to play this deck. It seems cool. It's kind of interesting. It's very fishy, you know? But I think the artwork for the leader looks fantastic, and again, just like Big Mama, maybe he doesn't have a home now, but he may have a home later in the game. It just becomes a little difficult when your leader is legitimately Doflamingo, but instead of Doflamingoing from top of your deck, you're Doflamingoing from your hand. And even though the trigger cards may, unless they're on average better than, and not even on average, they have to be significantly better than the cards that come out of the top of the deck for the 7 Warlords archetype to make this leader just naturally better than Flamingo. The green cards and the yellow cards just have to be miles and miles ahead of blue, which I don't think they are. And in general, as we've seen the next couple sets come out, set 4, we have it all released and the information available to us. It doesn't seem like they get anything much better than the blue deck gets. Blue actually gets a lot stronger cards, like a ton of strong cards. So it's going to be difficult for this deck to ever compete with the Doflamingo archetype. And at the same time, unless they start printing some really bonkers triggers, which I hope they don't, within the range of 4 costs or less, then, we just won't see the Fishman doing too much. Then talking about the card that was the character card that was the highest in the set was Charlotte Pudding. Now Charlotte Pudding was about 188 bucks, and we're looking at 50 bucks now. Again, more than $100 decrease of the $200 card, now at 60 bucks. Pretty darn good, right? So if you want to play your Big Mom deck and you want to max it out, I think maxing out the Big Mom deck is not impossible, in my opinion. There's a lot of really, all the alt arts seem to be within a really relatively good range. And Pudding being, dropping that amount from 200 to 60 seems really, really good. Now, will this card continue to go lower? It definitely can, but at the same time, would it, right? 60 bucks for a searcher for the deck that you're always going to be playing if you want to play the Big Mom Pirates seems pretty darn reasonable, being at 60 bucks. So if you want to pick up this card, this seems like a really solid floor, as this card can start rising up with popularity of yellow in tournaments. Then we've got Khalifa at 50 bucks. This was another card that was about 100 and something, maybe even 120 on release. Yeah, we got 100 here, and it's already dropped about 50%. And 50 bucks, it seems a little, this card could continue to go lower. It is an all-around great black card. This is not just for the CP9 engine. The fact that it is a 2K 4 for 4 that just cycles. This little draw 2 trash 2 that Kaya, Khalifa, and Soga King have seems to be really good for these decks, because these decks do just play some amount of top end that have no counter power, right? Blue will play Mihawks, they'll play Flamingos, maybe something along those lines, and then they can just draw and trash them in matchups that don't matter, specifically versus really low to the ground decks like Zoro. Khalifa lets you filter like Fujitoras and Kuzans if you don't need them in a matchup, which is really, really nice. This can, if you're playing the CP9 engine, this card is even better because you can bring it off of Bluno, you can air door it, you can search it. It's really, really solid. And I think the card was honestly a little bit overpriced, but mostly because of that coveted waifu tax that people like to say. But besides it being taxed really heavily on that, it's just a beautiful artwork in general. I don't think this is a fan favorite character, but correct me if I'm wrong. 50 bucks seems pretty reasonable. I could see this card going down a little bit more, but I do think as well that CP9 is going to have some really solid pushes in the regional format, so we might even see this card go back up just slightly. So these two are very difficult to tell, because I do believe that both of these decks will start having results very, very soon. On the same topic of having results, we have Marco. Now Marco went from 120 to 60, so another 50% decrease here, and that 50% decrease is, I can see him going lower. 60 bucks for this card is quite a bit. It is a very powerful card, but is it $60? I'm not necessarily sure. This card single-handedly has brought the other Marco from OPO2 as well as Ace up, because those cards in general in the Whitebeard Pirates decks are really, really powerful. So it's interesting to see how new archetypes kind of push others up. But this card is bananas. The artwork is great. We have wings that are like reflective. We have these mirrored wings. It's really, really nice. But seeing a card like this drop 50% is really solid for all you red players, because that just means you can go ahead and, this is basically all you're adding from OPO3 to make your deck even better. So seeing it at 60 bucks, that's about $240 for an entire playset of Marcos, which is a lot better than the original 400, right? 50% is not too bad. Then we've got the wanted cards, which I believe they were going to be really expensive. I didn't know the ratios that these were going to have in the US, and I'm kind of surprised that they're so cheap, right? Besides the Luffy, which has held about $65, which again, this was significantly higher pre the set coming out. If we look at the sales history, I'm going to have to go back. It doesn't seem like any sold before 90 bucks, but I think people are now picking them up at around 70. This one looks really, really cool. I've seen it in person. Fantastic card for a collector. And in general, 67 bucks. Even though the card is not too great, it is a very iconic card in my opinion from set 1 and set 2. This card was a menace, and it might continue to be a menace. It might find a home still. We can still probably see this card in the meta to this day. And at 70 bucks, it seems the most reasonable. The other wanted cards are less than 30 bucks. That's pretty crazy to me. I thought these cards were going to be for sure at least 100 bucks just because they were a special rarity or anything like that. So I was very, very wrong on the wanted cards. They all hold very bizarre financial evaluations. So the Kaido going for 30, it's kind of crazy, but it looks great if you want to play this card in your deck. Although we don't really see this card in any purple deck. We don't really see much purple in general. This is a pretty solid price for this card. Honestly, a collector's piece, and it's a playable card. Eustace, one of the menaces of the One Piece trading card game, sitting at 30 bucks for this art is pretty darn cool too. You don't see this card as much because now we have a lot more removal in the game. We've got Katakuri, we've got Flame Emperor, we've got the whole black engine. So this card is kind of like, which was a ridiculous card in general, set 1 and set 2, has finally found a way to calm down, which is really, really nice. But again, very iconic card. Literally destroyed the game in set 1. So if you want to keep it as a memento of set 1, I think this is a really, really cool card. At 30 bucks seems very fine to me for a card of this caliber. And we've got Doflamingo, literally the menace of the super pre-release. So we've got super pre-release, set 1, and all around a Luffy, great card. And then the Kaido's kind of just chilling there because he's Kaido. But yeah, all these wanted cards were menaces in their own right, and seeing them all under that $30 range is really, really cool. Just so you can add that to your collection. We've got now the yellow engine. I just wanted to speak about that before we wrap up this video because I do think the yellow engine in general is pretty darn cheap. Mama is sitting at 40 bucks. Not gonna lie, yesterday alone she was at 25, I believe. I saw this, at least I saw it being posted. Yeah, you see here, one sale at 27, 29, 26. Kind of crazy, right? We were seeing this card under $30 just yesterday, so there's a lot of volatility with this card. I do believe less than 30 is a steal for this card. This card is... wow, this card is frustrating. It's making me really, really struggle as a player of Ace. I'm trying to find a way to beat this card, and I just single-handedly lose to this card over and over again. If my opponent plays one of this, it's doable. If they play two of this, I just can't win. And if they play three of this, my goodness, what are we doing here? This card is very, very strong. I seem to have evaluated it very poorly when I first saw it, and yeah, this card's crazy. This card's absolutely nuts, and the artwork is nightmare fuel. So 40 bucks. Pretty reasonable, but personally I wouldn't pick it up at 40, as seeing that I'm a FOMO kind of individual, because I did see this card at like 30s and 25s, so I don't want to pick it up at 40 knowing that I could have picked it up at those prices. Then we've got Charlotte Cracker sitting at 27 bucks. He's the only one that hasn't really bounced back from the prices that I saw yesterday. This card was trading at 25s, 26s, and 27 seems pretty okay for this card. This card is bananas. The artwork is great. But 27 bucks for this card is super duper reasonable in my opinion. We've got the Pero Sparrow now at 35. Now Pero Sparrow was another one that was in the $20 range as well, but he's already bouncing back like Mama. We see here, you see him at 23s, 24s, literally right here, the low 20s. You bought a little playset for 23 a piece, which is significantly better than 35. But we might see, again, as people open more boxes, we might see this continue to drop down a little bit. But it seems like this is going to be his range, as well as Mama's in the $40 range. So reasonable, because it is a very strong card in a new archetype with a character that is also very frustrating. So I can see it holding that value. But myself being, seeing it at 23 and not picking it up, I'm probably not going to pick it up at 35 either. And we've got Sogeking here. So this is another alt art secret. I wanted to showcase what alt art secrets can be. So now that we finally have playable alt art secrets, Sogeking is on the fringe of playability. If you're going to play a deck that has Sogeking, you're probably playing Nami or Crocodile, a slower blue deck. And I don't think people are much, into believing that those decks are viable, right? So those same individuals probably don't think that this card is very, very good. And because of that, I see him at, he's probably has this evaluation. But I do think this card is generally a strong card. This artwork, maybe the reason that this is holding such a low evaluation is because of the fact that the original artwork that just says it's much more colorful. It has the Sogeking text. It looks fantastic. So if you want to play this card, you can just play the regular Sogeking, which is $10, which is much better than paying for like double, right? If you like the other art. But maybe that's why. And then I wanted to show you the difference between this guy and Katakuri. Katakuri, obviously very playable alt art secret, but seeing this card at 50 bucks is interesting because he's basically the same price range as the Mama, right? Mama and Pero Sparrow will, I believe, eventually catch up to him, and you'll eventually come down because you don't play 4 of this card in your deck that I have seen. Maybe I'm wrong in that evaluation as well, but it's just interesting to see how the difference between the playability in secrets comes down. Even though Sogeking is I would say Sogeking is a fan favorite character. Not saying Katakuri isn't, but I think Sogeking's a little bit more fan favorite, and even then, he holds a significantly lower price number, more than 50% than the Katakuri card. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys have a lot of information. I think we were mostly right on the evaluations of the entire set. So I hope you're able to pick up stuff at reasonable rates and get yourself the cards that you needed to pump up your decks, getting ready for the next competitive season. As always, guys, if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, a comment in the comment section where you can say, we plussed, we negged, and as always, if you're enjoying these type of videos and want to continue to support my channel and pick up and join the Pirate Crew, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.